now.
Happy Easter from Hamilton Heights Christian Academy.
As the spring weather gets here, the sun's out a little bit longer. Most of us are going to be outside, either out for a run, working in the yard, or you know it, hanging out on the lake and by the pool. And hopefully, all of us are going to be putting our sunscreen on. Dr. Justin Wilkes joins us this morning. He is new to town. He is a surgical oncologist with CHI Memorial's Surgical Associates. You're going to remind us of the importance of that sunscreen application, but also the timing is right because y'all are gearing up for Elizabeth's Outrun Melanoma coming up at the end of April.
Yeah, that's right. So with regards to sunscreen and skin cancer, sun exposure is by far the biggest risk factor for developing melanoma and skin cancers in general. Skin cancer is actually the most common cancer in the country. We don't even know how many people get basal cell and squamous cell because it's so common, but more intimidating, more deadly is melanoma because it has the propensity to spread to your lymph nodes and to elsewhere.
You know, and most of us do know that about the melanoma, so you're right. The basal cells are such a common thing that you kind of get a little bit of a panic, I think, if you get that diagnosis. Does left untreated, will a basal or squamous cell translate into a melanoma?
So no, so they come from different cell types. So basal cell and squamous cell will just stay that way.
Okay.
They can spread very rarely though. More likely if they go untreated, they'll cause kind of local issues and can become more cumbersome to resect, and they can kill you, but melanoma, with its ability to spread to your lymph nodes or elsewhere, can cause other issues and is a little more deadly because of that.
I know that you are new to town. You are certainly not new to your specialty. You came here from Tampa. So I'm sure you saw quite a bit of this, as you said, in the Tampa area.
Yeah, I trained at Moffitt Cancer Center. I just finished my fellowship there. So yeah, a lot of retiree sun worshipers, and we treat a lot of melanoma. So we're probably one of the busiest cancer centers in the country, certainly with regards to cutaneous malignancies.
For people who are here in Chattanooga, they've heard about Elizabeth's Outrun Melanoma for a while now. I think this is actually the 10th year for the event, and Elizabeth was just a mom, and she had melanoma, and she thought, beat it. And then I think it's something like 20 years later it came back in the form of breast cancer. So is that also part of the concern of a melanoma, that it will quietly do other things?
So melanoma can be tricky. It can spread to other organs, obviously. I think most likely it spread to the lymph nodes in her axilla, in her armpit, so it acts like a breast cancer and can be confusing. But it's actually an interesting cancer process. It's very immunogenic, meaning your body can fight it off sometimes. So if you have a history of a melanoma, it's certainly very important that you continue to follow with a dermatologist and stay on top of it, because at some point it could evade your immune system and show back up in other places.
So, okay, I'm going to pepper you with all types of questions, because often often they go to a dermatologist first because they see something that doesn't look right. Correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And we've heard, and you can go into it, but about those telltale kind of signs of the misshapen mole or the discoloration rapidly growing. Is that spot always going to be cancerous?
Right. So first of all, you're right. Dermatologists are invaluable in this process. They use full skin exams. I've met many of them around the area, and they're excellent in Chattanooga from my experience. But yeah, we have these things we look for in melanoma. They're called the ABCDEs. Most importantly is the E, evolution. So if you have a mole and it looks kind of intimidating, but it's been that way for a long, long time, certainly you should keep an eye on it, but it's the mole that's changing, that's the most concerning and most likely to get biopsied so that we can take care of it. The other ABCDEs are asymmetry. So if it's not a perfect circle, border irregularity, color variegation, which is a fancy word for multicolored, and then a diameter greater than 6 millimeters. So that's about the size of a pencil eraser. Okay. If you still own a pencil.
Are there some common mistakes? Here I am with my fair Irish skin. My husband is Italian. So logic would tell me that I should be more concerned than he, but is that sometimes false?
So certainly ethnicity and background are a risk factor. So Scotch-Irish heritage, green-blue eyes, light-colored hair, red or blonde hair, definitely a risk factor, and then a family history of melanoma. But one of the things that we get tricked up with is that people that have more pigmentation in their skin, either medium-colored Caucasians, African American, Hispanic ethnicity, they actually sometimes present with more advanced melanoma because we don't focus on the education and making sure that they're aware of sun protection and surveillance for skin cancers as well. So it can come up as a surprise.
Their moms weren't pasting them with white suntan sunscreen like my mom was at the beach.
Right.
So I'm sure it's like a dentist telling kids, be careful of your sugar intake for your cavities. You can say all day long, wear sunscreen, and we're still so resistant to doing it.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I think we're getting better at it. I think, you know, certainly in the 90s and early 2000s, there was this push towards tanning beds and a lot of people using those, and I know people still do. Tanning beds are one of the biggest risk factors for developing a melanoma, and then anyone getting blistering sunburns. So, yeah, melanomas take a long time to develop, so that blistering sunburn you got when you were a teenager, like when I was out tubing down the river and I showed up and then I sat in front of the air conditioner for 3 days, you know, helping my sunburn. It's that turns into a skin cancer later down the line.
So, okay, we've all been there. I was that same one. Mine was a Disney World fiasco. So that happened. So is the thing to do now just address it and make sure you put that sunscreen on? You can't undo.
That's right. So the DNA damage has been done, and that's what develops into a cancer. But we do believe, and we've kind of shown that if you do protect yourself going forward, you're less likely to develop more cancers. Most importantly, if you're fair-skinned, have a history of sun damage or family histories that you surveil yourself, or if you're able to establish with a dermatologist relatively early on in your life so they can surveil you as well.
And you're not saying don't get out and enjoy this beautiful season we're heading into. You're just saying keep the sunscreen on while you're doing it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I came from the Midwest, so being in Tampa for a couple years for fellowship was enjoyable.
Yeah.
We definitely got out on the beach, but you know, we got sun shirts, we reapplied sunscreen frequently. I have a 4-year-old who we would set the timer for to reset the sunscreen every 60 to 90 minutes, and then for those of us that are follically challenged, we wear a hat out in the sun, that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely get out and enjoy it and just protect yourself.
I would not have gone there, but I'm going to grab one of my children. She will get a sunburn on her head. So you don't think about that. What do? Just wear a hat? You can't apply sunscreen to
I mean, if you have a part in your hair, certainly you can apply sunscreen there. But yeah, I mean, I wear a hat. We put certainly on little kids and toddlers, you can get these cute little hats, and then you can take nice pictures too. So, and I hate to bring up then a negative when we've been on a happy, but it's also part of the trick is that to get rid of a melanoma, you have to cut it out. And so if it's in a part of the body where it's not a lot of skin and it's more bone, what do you do? Yeah, so frequently we can rearrange tissue or we can pull together tissue after removing it. The tricky part about melanoma is that where other skin cancers, basal cells and squamous cell, you can just cut around it and do what's called a Mohs surgery and take very close margins. Melanoma has a tendency to send out these little satellite cancers. So even though your lesion's only this small, you have to take a pretty big rim of tissue to make sure you get it all out. In those cases, yeah, it's difficult. You're committing yourself to a big surgery, sometimes a skin graft. So catching it early when it's very thin and you don't have to take quite as wide a margin is certainly helpful.
But surgery is always going to be a component of the treatment?
If you have localized melanoma just in your skin or skin and lymph nodes, then yeah, surgery is the treatment.
All right. Thank you for the conversation.
Yeah.
I hope you have a closet full of hats.
I do.
You can find him if hopefully you're not in need of a surgical oncologist, but if you are, he is with CHI Memorial. And the main thing to please put on your calendar is to mark the date for April 30th. We didn't really talk about that a whole lot in our conversation because we wanted you more to understand the importance of supporting the walk, yes, but living day to day in a safe and protective way. So if you want to register, it's Elizabeth's Outrun Melanoma 5K. This is the 10th year for the event. You can go to Memorial's website, memorial.org/race. You also can call 495-4438, and there is the great shirt. Every event in Chattanooga has to have a great shirt to accompany it, and this one certainly is one. Thanks again, Dr. Wilkes.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
In your time of sorrow, let Lane Funeral Home on Ashland Terrace give you something to smile about. We focus on celebrating the life of your loved one. We will hold your hand through the process and make sure your loved one's life doesn't go unnoticed. Call us today at Lane Funeral Home on Ashland Terrace.
You were involved in an accident.